who's playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things neither in their speculations nor in their words.
Savedhatu padavim parasya durantaviryasya rathagnapanehe yo mayaya santataya nuvrittaya vajet tadvad gandhama.
Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence.
Atheha dhanya bhagavanta itham tadvasudeve kilalokanathe kurvanti sarvatma kamatma bhavam nayatra bhuya parivarta ugraha.
Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes and guarantees 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death.
Idam bhagavatam nama puranam brahma sammitam uttama shloka charitam chakara bhagavan rishihi nishreyasaya lokasya dhanyam swastyayanam mahat.
This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect.
Tadidam krahayamasa sutamatmavatambaram sarva vedeti hasanam saram saram samudritam.
Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe.
Sato sanshravayamasa maharajam parikshitam prayopavishtam gangayam paritam paramarshibhihi.
Sukdev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great Emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink.
Krishne swadhamo pagate dharma jnanadibhihi saha kalo nashta dishamesha puranarko dhunoditaha.
This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Hare Krishna.
There's one more verse.
Sorry.
Continue, Anjumata.
Tatra kirtaya vipreshe bhurvirite jasaha aham chadhyagamam tatta nivishtastadanugrahata soham vaha shravayishyam mi yathaditam yathamati.
O learned Brahmanas, when Sukdev Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from the great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learnt it from him and as I have realized it. Hare Krishna, and thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Anju Mataji and Kusum Mataji. Thank you very much. And thank you, Devyani. You were recording our verses. Thank you so much. I know Jyoti Mataji is not around. Thank you very much. All right. Let me just see if I can bring my screen up. Just give me 1 minute. Share screen. Here we are. All right. I think you all can see the screen now.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, before we start reading from the most auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll recite our prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So today we are going to read Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse number 37. Yeah. Nachasya kaschin nipunena dhatur avaiti jantu kumani sautihi namani rupani manovachobi santan vato natacharyam ivajnaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama, nor can they express such things neither in their speculations nor in their words. Does anybody want to read the purport?
Yes, Mataji, can I?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. No one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. And yet there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. To the layman, his activities, appearance and disappearance, his name, his forms, his paraphernalia, his personality, and all things in relation with him are mysterious. There are two classes of materialists, namely the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers. The fruitive workers have practically no information of the absolute truth, and the mental speculators, after being frustrated in fruitive activities, turn their faces towards the absolute truth and try to know him by mental speculation. And for all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is a mystery to children. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation are always in ignorance. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or the fruitive workers, but because they are also within the grip of illusion, they take it for granted that anything which has form, a name, and activities is but a product of material energy. For them, the Supreme Spirit is formless, nameless, and inactive. And because such mental speculators equalize the transcendental name and form of the Lord with mundane names and form, they are in fact in ignorance. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within the material world. But ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and they are misled by the illusory energy. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Jolie Mataji. Thank you very much. Okay, before we discuss this, let's recite our prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Yakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Okay, so thank you very much for joining this evening. And we are on chapter 3, where we've spoken in past about Krishna and his various incarnations. And this section is talking about who can understand Krishna, who can describe Krishna, who can talk about Krishna. So that's the section. And today's verse is talking about the fruitive workers and the philosophers or mental speculators who will never be able to understand Krishna. Right? So I'll just repeat the translation for this verse. The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. So here, it says that the foolish people can never understand. And in the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says that when I descend as a human child, fools think of me as nothing else but just another human being. So here in Bhagavad Gita 9.11, Krishna says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So in the Sanskrit, in this shloka in the Sanskrit, the word used is kumanish. Kumanish means somebody with a poor fund of knowledge. Manish means somebody who has knowledge. And kumanish means with a poor fund of knowledge. Now such people, no matter how much they try, they will not be able to understand this transcendental form of the Lord. At the most, what they might think is that here is a person, a personality who has some kind of extraordinary powers, some kind of mystic siddhis. If you remember the story when Krishna went into the, I missed that word. When Krishna went to speak to Duryodhan about asking him not to have the war, and he went in the palace of Duryodhan where everybody was present. And Duryodhan, obviously being full of his ego and anger towards the Pandavas, and he wanted all of the land for himself, all the power for himself. He was not willing to listen to anybody, even Krishna. At that time, at that moment, Krishna actually showed his partial universal form to Duryodhan. But even at that time, Duryodhan was not willing to accept that Krishna could be something more than just a normal human being. In his mind, he was thinking he is just another human being with some kind of mystic siddhis. And that is why he asked his soldiers to come and capture Krishna and put him in the prison. So the point that we are trying to make here is that even today, in this world also, there are so many people, Prabhupada openly calls them foolish, fools, that they don't understand, they don't have the knowledge to understand Krishna's transcendental form. For them, they feel that he has come as a human child. He is nothing other than a human child. That's it. The problem is that because we are in this material body, influenced by the modes of material nature, with our material senses, it is very difficult to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's birth and his activities, right? And that is what is being reiterated here in this verse, that a person who is Kumanish will not understand this. And then what is described further is how Krishna is like an actor in a drama. And this is a very nice, beautiful, one of my favorite verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This comes in the prayers of Queen Kunti, and I really, really like this verse. And this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 8th chapter, verse number 19. And it says, Maya Javanika Channam Agya Dokshajam Avyayam Na Lakshya Se Mudha Drisha Nato Natya Dharo Yataha. I'll read the translation. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So, we all have experienced, I don't know if any of you goes to watch movies or no, but I do. Sometimes even now I have to for the children. But whenever, like if I go to watch a movie, we get so engrossed in the drama that is happening on screen that sometimes you're not aware, but with the actor, you are crying or you're laughing or you're totally engrossed in, those kinds of scenes. Now, so what is happening to us is that our consciousness for that particular moment or that time, our consciousness, we lose our current consciousness and we become more involved with the movie. But as soon as it stops, you come back to your external consciousness. It is almost like when a person is dreaming, but that stage is even more deep. Here you are awake, but you go into a dream stage because you start getting so involved with what is being shown on the screen. Now, everybody knows that the people who are playing this part is just an actor. Like, let's say, you know who Superman is, or for that matter, who, Amitabh Bachchan is for that matter. When you see him on screen, he's playing a character. An intelligent man knows that is just a character. When you see him elsewhere, you know that this is Amitabh Bachchan, not the character. But because you get so involved, because there is this curtain of this deluding energy, like Prabhupada says here in the translation, sometimes you just start to take the character as the part that he was playing. For example, when we were growing up in India, we had these serials, Mahabharata and Ramayana. The characters who played Ram and Sita in the serial Ramayana, even to date, there are people who look up to them in all reverence. And in those days, when they were actually playing the character, and this serial was showing on TV shows, it was coming every, I think, weekends or whatever, people would actually bow down to them if they ever saw them in public. So although they were actors, they're not really Ram and Sita, they were actors. But because of our sense perception, we wanted to see them as Ram and Sita, And here what is happening is Krishna is coming down also as an actor. In so many different avatars, he's coming in order to perform various kinds of pastimes, leela, so that he can attract all of us. And at that time, we are not able to see the original Krishna as he is. All of us are just thinking that he is just another human being or just another personality. We forget that he is the supreme personality of Godhead. So, on one hand, there is Maya, the illusory energy is covering our curtains. And that is why we are not covering our eyes. And that's why we are not able to see what lies beyond the material nature. We are limited by our senses. Prabhupada gives a very wonderful example in one of his lectures. And he gives the example of how we are limited to make words from the alphabets A to Z. The only alphabets we know in the English language is from A to Z. Like that, in the Sanskrit language, it is from A to Sh. So we are limited by these alphabets. We can't make anything beyond that. We don't know anything beyond that, right? Now, with our limited knowledge, with our limited understanding, how are we going to understand somebody who is adokshajam? Adokshajam means beyond the perception of our material understanding. So here in this verse, it says agyan. Somebody who's agyan, somebody who does not have the knowledge or is limited by his understanding, how is he going to understand the adokshajam, right? Prabhupada also gives the example that so Prabhupada is talking 50 years back. So he's talking about how in the US, you all are making these very high storied building, 110 stories. And you think that by advancing the number of stories, you are advancing in your material life. But even if you take millions, if you make millions of stories, still it is unlimited. What he was trying to give analogy was that the sky is unlimited. You keep making millions of stories high, you're not going to touch the sky. There's going to be no limit. You can keep making it. If you have your technology, which is that advanced, you can keep making it. Like there are so many airplanes flying in the sky and still the sky is unlimited. So your knowledge, your technology cannot match the unlimited nature of this material creation. And if it cannot even match the unlimited nature of the material creation, then what to speak of the spiritual world, right? So there are actually many impediments which hold us back from understanding Krishna. Obviously, we spoke about the curtain of Maya and that we are limited and Krishna is beyond our sense perception. Then in the purport, Krishna is talking about two classes of materialists, the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers, right? So we have the fruitive workers who are actually constantly just thinking about how they can make their material life better in the current body and even further. So maximum that they will think of is how I can perform pious activities so that I am elevated at some point in the future to the higher heavenly planet so that I can enjoy my senses even more. That's all that they can think of. So the karmis are constantly focused on living a good life, right? The jnanis are focused on leaving this material world. So karmis focus on living and jnanis are focusing on leaving and getting liberation. But the liberation that the jnanis are focusing on is not permanent. What is happening with these empiric philosophers or these mental speculators is they are, yes, 100% better than the karmis because they have somehow, by their study of the Vedic literatures, become detached from enjoying the material senses. But they don't have the understanding of the absolute truth because they start, their beginning of understanding of the absolute truth is from the wrong idea that the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the absolute truth is only impersonal. So because they have this wrong idea that they start from, they are not able to go further ahead. Their understanding is that if something is in this material creation governed by the material energy, then that is material. So when they see Krishna being born as a human being, Krishna's form to them is material because in their understanding, spirit or spiritual should be exactly the opposite. So spirit should not have any form. It should be completely formless. And that is why they are not able to move ahead because they are actually causing an offense to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, they do study the Vedic literatures. And in the Vedic literatures, we have various verses which actually describes the form of Krishna. Like just one example here is, the Lord's original form is Vijabhuja Shyam-sundar Murlidhar, the Lord with two hands playing a flute. Now, mental speculators or impersonalists or Mayavadis, when they read these, in their mind, they say this is all imaginary. This is all the work of some sentimental devotees or transcendentalists. Now, how can they make such comments? And that is why they make offense to the Srimad Bhagavatam. They make offense to the devotees of the Lord. Thus, they cannot understand the Lord at all. The greatest transcendentalist is Sukadev Goswami, who was given this stage, this asan, where he was asked to speak to Parikshit Maharaj, who had only 7 days to live. Sukadev Goswami was giving him the highest understanding of self-realization. And there were so many sages who gave him this highest position. So then when Sukadev Goswami is speaking about the glorification of Lord Krishna, about the glorification of his various devotees, how can one not take those words as they are and try to give your own interpretation, which is what the Mayavadis do. So we have one hand, we have the karmis who are so absorbed in sense gratification that they cannot think anything beyond that. On the other hand, we have empiric philosophers who do understand, who try to read the Vedas, but their understanding is imperfect. Their understanding is imperfect because although the Vedas is giving them, the clear understanding, but they are only basing everything on their mental speculation. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, it says, and I'll just read the translation, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Now, Krishna is saying here that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. But the mental speculators stop themselves at only trying to understand the impersonal Brahman. and they fail to progress further. The absolute truth can be understood in 3 stages: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, right? But the Mayavadis or the impersonalists or the philosophers, the Gyanis, just stop at the first stage. Maybe they will go on to the second stage where they think of Paramatma, but they fail to see the personal aspect, the Bhagavan aspect. And in one of the lectures, Prabhupada says, the form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of material form and is therefore inconceivable. A devotee prays, however, "My dear Lord, be pleased with me so that I may very easily see your transcendental form and potencies." Non-devotees try to understand the Supreme Brahman by discussion of Neti Neti, Nisheda, Nirvana, Sukhanubhuti. A devotee, however, simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, avoids such laborious speculations and realizes the existence of the Lord very easily. So what the Gyanis try to do is, they are trying to understand the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth, by their own mental speculations. So the term Neti Neti means not this, not this. So, they're trying to just speculate that, is the Lord this? No, not this, not this, not this. So the way their understanding is incomplete. Because their understanding is incomplete, they will never reach a position where they will be able to understand Krishna. And this is exactly what Prabhupada is saying, that the fruitive workers and the materialists will not be able to understand Krishna. And says in the last part says, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within the material world. And only those people who can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord's birth and his activities can actually understand the Lord. So obviously in the future, in the next verses, it will be discussed how the Lord can only be understood by devotees, by bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam, right in the beginning when we were studying Srimad Bhagavatam, in the introduction and the first few verses, it was said that one has to approach Srimad Bhagavatam with complete sincerity, humility, and surrender. If one approaches Srimad Bhagavatam in a challenging mood, then the Srimad Bhagavatam will not reveal itself. The Bhagavatam is non-different to Krishna. And that is exactly the mood when one is approaching Lord Krishna, whether in the deity form, in the personal form, as the Paramatma within you. That is the mood that one has to approach Krishna in. Only then Krishna will reveal himself. Otherwise, one will never be able to understand Krishna. So I'm going to stop here now. If there are any questions or comments about this verse, please unmute yourselves and ask.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Jolie Mataji.
I have always thought of this knowledge base approach, and thinking of this old gentleman that couldn't read or write. It's a story about him. Yes. With Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes.
While he was passing, he noticed he was in floods of tears. I don't know if I'm telling the story right. Please correct me.
No, you are saying the story absolutely correctly.
And he made inquiry as to why he was in such tearful state. And he said he couldn't help it. And I think what you said about the perfect understanding, he had the understanding, but he couldn't read or write, but he just interpreted the picture as pure love and sincere approach, and he actually said that he couldn't read, but just looking at the picture, I think Krishna was on the chariot. Yes. And that just broke his heart in a joyful way, because that's when he realized how the message of pure, deep joy he received. So that is the understanding. And I really love that, how you described it, because I was really wondering how can knowledge make you, the theoretical knowledge make you a pure, good, sincere devotee. But I think is to do with understanding and using that understanding in a practical way.
Yes. So we should not misunderstand knowledge in the sense that when Prabhupada first came to the US, nobody knew who Krishna is. Now, knowing Krishna or finding out who is Krishna, that is also knowledge, but that's a different kind of knowledge. You need that knowledge. Like we say, how can you love somebody if you don't know him or if you don't know anything about him? So trying to get that understanding comes under devotional service. But trying to just be philosophical about the material nature, about creation, thinking that how can Lord have form? Why are you limiting the Lord? The Lord can be formless or have form because the Lord is limitless. Why are you limiting the Lord with your limited knowledge? That kind of knowledge, that kind of speculation is wrong. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or corrections?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my obeisances.
My obeisances.
Thank you for a wonderful explanation of the verse. I always have this question. What's the meaning of Brahman? Like, when we say impersonal Brahman, but this Brahman word is used so many places. When I search for the definition, there's so many meanings.
Prabhupada describes this in the Bhagavad Gita, I think chapter 3, but he gives the analogy of the sun. This is a very easy analogy to understand. There's two analogies which are very easy to understand when you're trying to understand Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So first thing we have to understand is the absolute truth or the supreme personality of Godhead can be understood in 3 stages. Okay? None of the stage is wrong. So understanding the Lord in these 3 stages is correct, but the complete understanding is when you understand all the 3 stages. So Prabhupada gives this example or analogy that when you see the sun rays, right? You see the sun rays, it is entering your room. At that time, you don't say that the sun has entered the room. You're saying the sun. You say the sun has entered, but you don't mean that the actual sun has entered. It's just the sun rays. That's the light, right? A lot of people, impersonalists, talk about meditating on this effulgence, this light. But the point is, this light is coming from somewhere, correct? So the light is the Brahman realization that yes, you realize that there is this light. There is something that is above this material creation. So that's the light, right? But the next stage of understanding is, where is this light coming from? If there is an energy, there has got to be energetic, somebody who's giving out this energy. So then you move on to the next stage where you realize, okay, this light is coming from the sun globe, the surface of the sun globe. It's coming from there. So then that means, so then the analogy is that now you've understood that there is this effulgence, but then there is something else. There is, some other, there is the energetic. And that is the realization of Paramatma, the Paramatma or the super soul, who is in every living entity. You've realized that. But that is not the limit of the super soul or the supreme. So then Prabhupada says that if there is a sun globe, then there has got to be somebody who is managing, who is within the sun, who is the Lord of the sun globe. And that is the Bhagavan. So when you understand in these 3 stages, then you understand the Lord completely. Bhagavan is, Paramatma is, you're saying, okay, he is the super soul in every living entity. But then Bhagavan is within and without. He is inside, but he's also outside. He's everywhere. You see? So when you understand this in these 3 stages, then you understand the absolute truth. So Brahman is actually the first stage of understanding Lord.
Okay.
So this is one analogy which Prabhupada uses. The other analogy which he uses is of a mountain. You know, again, when you are, let's say you're driving towards a mountain, what you see is just the shape, right? And you might think, okay, there may be, you know, it's just a shape and whatever it is. When you go closer, then you see that there are trees, there are houses, there are, you know, animals or whatever. You go further close and then you can actually see everything very clearly. So your understanding when you were driving towards a mountain that this is a mountain was not wrong. That was your first stage of understanding. That was your Brahman understanding that yes, there is something there. You go further, then you realize there's trees over there. There's, you know, houses over there. You go further, you see there are animals, there are birds, there are people on that. So you realized and you understood the mountain in 3 stages. Your final stage of understanding was the complete understanding of the mountain. So that is why Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan are 3 stages of understanding the one supreme Lord. Okay, I hope that kind of makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji.
Any further additions to this question or this answer, if there's, or any other questions? There's one comment by Hema Mataji. King Rahuguna had department of knowledge but had no devotion. So he was at the bodily concept and thus full of ego, correct? Thus insulted Jad Bharat. So having Vedic knowledge keeps you at the effulgence levels, doesn't allow you to get to the devotion level and recognize Bhagavan. Paramatma may be within others and within yourself. That's very true. So that is the difference between this knowledge and then having devotion. You may know all the Vedic mantras, you may be able to recite everything, but if you have not developed bhakti or devotions towards Lord, then that knowledge will not give you the complete understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Hema Mataji, for sharing that. Is there anything else? If not, then, oh, did somebody unmute? No. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, then we'll stop here. Vanchakalpatriyubhascha
Vebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful class.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Wonderful
class.
explanation.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Very clear.
Hare
Thank you. Hari Bol.